What's up, you guys? My schedule is a little shifted around this week, so I get to make this video earlier tonight. We're here for our midweek reading. This is our midweek alchemy message where we unpack this week's spiritual lessons and assignments. And so it really falls very continuously with Monday's message about preserving sacred wisdom and learning your own and strengthening your own sense of discernment, learning how to listen to your own intuition, and then being spiritually prompt and acting on that swiftly and promptly. We also, in our strengthening of our discernment, we have to learn the difference between listening to that inner voice and listening to the noise of fear and even excitement in our head, and then being reactive and then taking action reflexively in reactivity instead of the contrast between having wisdom, discernment, being able to hear that very subtle voice within, and then being able to discern the timing and acting promptly on that guidance. So an example today was that, well, first I'll show you the cards and then we'll talk about today's subjects. So the Benevolent Guide came out from the Wild Unknown Alchemy deck, followed by Raven's Head, which we had last week. And then we also had Gnosis last week, which we had yesterday. So there are repeat cards and repeat themes coming up. And we have Saturn. We recently had a Kazemi in Saturn too that we talked about last night. So you might want to, if you haven't seen last night's message, that will be definitely the preface or the prequel to tonight's message for sure. And so underneath Benevolent Guide, we have Page of Cups. Underneath Raven's Head, we have Queen of Cups. And underneath Saturn, we have Three of Cups. So this week, we've got a lot of cups here. And so we might feel very emotional. And the challenge is to ground our emotions and not necessarily react from an emotional place. Like if you're feeling sad or afraid and you're stricken with fear and you're stricken with grief, then the better thing to do is not be in reactivity to it, like the effect of that grief or fear, but instead go into it head on and choose to mourn something very intentionally. Choose to face that fear and proactively play out that worst case scenario in your mind by your own choice, not because you're plagued with your thoughts, but because you own them and you are taking ownership of those thoughts and you're being proactive about working through them rather than being harassed by your thoughts and then reacting in an emotional way, because that puts you in effect consciousness. So our thoughts are the cause, our emotions are the effect. One of my Kabbalah teachers was talking about this in this week's daily portions of the Zohar. And so I thought it was really poignant because it's right along the theme of how I'm thinking and feeling this week, which that's no accident. That's why the portions of Torah/Zohar are what they are. They're assigned to each day of the year because that day of the year has a particular opening in the cosmic windows of time and space to challenge us and challenge our soul with that energy, because each day we have an opportunity to correct our tikkun. Our tikkun is like our soul assignments for this life and all the lives that have preceded and all the lives that will to come, that are to come. So our soul we bring with us through multiple lives. And throughout our lifetimes, we are given certain experiences and conditions and people and places and things that put certain triggers within us, or they cause our soul to show us what is weak or what is dark and what needs to be corrected. The tikkun are shells of negativity that kind of build up this grime and resin over our inner light over lifetimes. And so this darkness, this negativity comes from the original negativity that we took on in the beginning when we were all part of the souls of Adam and Eve. We all come from one source of human soul. We're splintered off from that. So throughout our lifetimes, we're all given this portion of negativity, this bag of tricks to bring to the earth with us. And our physical manifestation, the purpose of that is to transform and transmute that darkness. We learn in quantum physics that the law of conservation of matter states that energy and matter cannot be created nor destroyed. It can only be transformed and transmuted. And so that is every soul's purpose on this earth, is to do their own correction, is to transform that lead into gold. And we each have our own portion that we are assigned. So within that, this week, so the portions of the Torah are given to us every day so that we have a guideline and help in with our workbook of our soul to do the assignment. And so theoretically, a soul could theoretically correct their entire tikkun in 1 year. The year offers you all of the whole spectrum, the whole gamut of what we need to face our challenges, face ourselves, face our fears and our darkness, and correct our entire tikkun within 1 year. When we do that though, basically it's like there's no purpose for us to be on earth anymore. So many souls, like the sages, like for instance, Moses had done his full tikkun correction and he died on his birthday. So many high souls, righteous souls actually die on their birthday, and that's a sign that they had completed their tikkun. So part of the lesson this week that my Kabbalah teacher was talking about was that the dimension that rules over the thoughts and the mind and the consciousness, which is Chokmah, it is it's in the masculine column, or the positive column, or the column of mercy and energy, or mercy and justice, mercy, justice, forgiveness. Then there's the left-hand column, which is the feminine column, which is the column of judgment. And that's like a negative electric charge versus a positive charge. And then there's the central column, which is neutral. So Chokmah is the dimension of wisdom and consciousness and understanding, whereas Binah is its own version of wisdom and knowledge and understanding, but it's the divine feminine. And it is the center of our emotions, our feelings. And so the cause are our thoughts. The thoughts are the seed level. They go down into our feelings, which are here, which is associated with the feminine, which are all these cups. So the cause is the thought, the effect is the feeling. And so that's why we don't want to be driven completely by our emotions. We are informed by our emotions. We have insight and understanding through observing and studying our emotions and feeling the emotions, but we can't be reactive and affected by them in such a way that we are reflexively responding to life. We have to choose our thoughts, and then we have to choose to feel and perceive a certain way so that our feelings change, and we choose our actions, and that's what gives us sovereignty. Sometimes we can't help the way we feel, but we can try to shift our thoughts that are creating this emotional weather that creates these moods and these feelings. And so that's why it starts at the seed level. It starts in the consciousness. So we are trying to be the sovereign over our feelings here, but also to fine tune our intuition, because sometimes when our feelings are so loud, it is louder than our intuition. And so that's another reason why we have to be able to ground ourselves and get into a place of emotional sobriety so that we can tune into our intuition. So the benevolent guide is exactly that. It's being able to tune in and listen to our divine guidance and be guided by that higher wisdom and that soft, still voice within, and be able to perceive that. Also, at the end of my talking to you guys on camera, I will add today's reading so you can see the picture and you can get the voiceover of what I wrote. So stay tuned to the end and you'll hear that too. So with that, we had Page of Cups. And so Page of Cups is being sensitive and compassionate, being an open listener, being receptive. Sometimes this is an apology. Sometimes this is a connection of kindred spirits. So perhaps there's something in this where we need to be really sensitive to that inner voice and listen and not ignore it. Like last night, I didn't listen to my inner voice, and I wore my grandmother's pin to work and it fell off, and I knew it was going to fall off, and I just thought, oh, I'll have faith that I'll be okay. And I should have listened to the voice within that was trying to warn me so that I wouldn't lose my grandmother's pin. I have prayers that the angels will reveal this pin. Someone will find it. I'll get it back. But if not, I have to release it and let it go and understand that that is the cost of me having hubris and not listening to that inner voice. But it was a good reminder and a good training session, because as always, that voice came from right here. And it was like, it's always this like clean, simple, quick little phrase. It's not complicated. The opponent is complicated. The Holy Spirit is simple. It's always some little like quick sentence. And that's it. And it's not like this ongoing thing. It's not complex. It's not like, well, it doesn't leave me confused. It is very clear. It is very quiet. It's very succinct. And it doesn't keep on keeping on. It's just like, yeah. And then it might do like a, But usually it doesn't keep on keeping on. It doesn't keep on and keep on and keep on and keep on. I mean, sometimes you're left with like the memory and the nagging feeling, but it's very subtle and very quiet. So you really have to be listening, and it's not going to grab you and be like, no, you didn't listen. So you have to be sensitive and pay attention and be aware and be open to that guidance and be prompt with it. So the benevolent guide, we've been talking about finding, first of all, building your own connection with the Holy Spirit, with God, with Jesus, so that you have your own conscience developed. Because there are so many voices out there right now that are that are wolves in sheep's clothing. And everybody wants to grab your attention, and everybody wants you to believe what they're telling you. And everybody has their own agenda. And some people are benevolent guides, right? Sometimes people are fighting for what's right, and they are trying to preserve wisdom and truth, and they're trying to help mankind. But that's not the case with everyone. And every single time there's a wolf in sheep's clothing that's selling you on a lie, they're going to dress it up like it's the religious thing to do, like it's the patriotic thing to do, like it's the good thing, the right thing to do. This is the superior thing to do. It is always prim and pious, and it's judgy. It's exclusive. It is categorical. It's really over the top. That's why, going back as far as I can remember, but really, like, I noticed this in my early age, like in my adolescence, like with after 9/11, and even before that with Desert Storm, like everything that the government is trying to like shove down our throats, there's always some name on it that's like the what was that thing? The Patriot Act that basically tore away our right to privacy, and it basically gave the government reign to be spying on us, listening in on our phones and through our smart devices and anything like that. It impeded on our right to privacy for the sake of national security. It's always for some really good reason to keep you safe. There's always some patriotic name to get everybody gung-ho or put the peer pressure on you to make you think that it's absolutely necessary. And they're always trying to fear-monger you into believing that this is for your safety, that you're going to be exposed and vulnerable, and we're the ones trying to protect you, and we're the benevolent ones. But that's never the case. It is never the case. So, there are always threats to our security, but they're never as prominent as the loudest people make it out to be when they have something that they want to pass and they need your vote or they need your approval. So be wise to that whenever you start hearing things with this patriotic language or this evangelical fervor attached to it. It's often a lie, and it's often a way to manipulate the public. So today there was an executive order signed by the Cheeto to order the Smithsonian Institute to restore, truth and sanity to American history. This is 100% an attempt to even further whitewash the history of the United States and brainwash children who are going to have an education left, and to brainwash the American people and to bury the real history of the United States so that people can't get the real truth. And so generationally, it'll just be forgotten. And that is what, going back to yesterday's reading, we are the wisdom keepers. We have to hold on to that sacred knowledge. And it's not just spiritual wisdom. It is the real truth of history, because history will repeat itself if we don't pay attention. There was a historian, I just watched him make a presentation. It was a clip taken from the news that in Gainesboro, Tennessee, in Jackson County, I think that it's in East Tennessee. I think it's near the Smoky Mountains. There is a real estate development company trying to come in and build basically a gated community. You know how I always say, loving your neighbor is not just about who's in your gated community. They're trying to build a gated community of like-minded people who are white Christian nationalists. This is what's going down. And so this man, if you were to judge him on the surface, you would think that he was a hillbilly, a redneck, probably a MAGA, but he's not. He is a historian, and he was praising his ancestor, who was an independent, fiery woman who stuck in the town. She was the first person in the town to have a child there. They were one of the original settlers in that town. And she was also one of the people who stayed during a cholera outbreak, and she helped the town when people were sick and dying. And so this man is a historian, and he was just saying he respects the right for people to live and let live. And in normal cases, he would just turn a blind eye. But these people are about hate, and they are about violence, and they are about hacking up the Constitution and rewriting history and manipulating the message of Jesus. And they are menacing and sinister. And so he's like, this is going to forever damage our town to have them here. Basically, this is like when in Wild Wild Country, which is a documentary on what happened in Oregon in the early 80s, when the Sannyasin cult bought up a huge piece of land in rural Oregon so that they could establish themselves as a city and have political power and control over the area. So this is the same thing that's happening again. This is a cult starting a gated community, all perfect and nuclear looking and Stepford wifey, so that they can keep all the people out, and so that they can basically plot and scheme and do all of their diabolical things behind the safety of their private gated community. This is what Christian schools are trying to do by this whole voucher shit. They want to get all of the rich white kids into a school so that they can brainwash them. That's already what they're doing. My MAGA dad and his wife, child bride, and their child, they sent their child to a Christian academy because they don't want her to be around anybody of any other ethnicity or any other income. And my dad wasn't like this until he married her. And she is basically has poisoned him with prejudice and white supremacy. So that is what is already happening. They're brainwashing these children, just like in the Nazi agenda to brainwash Hitler's youth. So this is what we're dealing with here. Now, back to the order that the Cheeto signed an executive order to the Smithsonian Institute to restore truth and sanity to U.S. history. They have frozen the libraries, and they are going to go in and probably gut the libraries of all of the history books and anything relevant that would give the public access to the real truth about probably what's in our Constitution, what's really in our history. And it is a disgusting, blasphemous insult to all of the indigenous people who have suffered at the hands of white providence. It is a slap in the face to Black people and their fight for civil rights, and they are probably going to somehow soften the idea of slavery. This is an affront to Black and brown people and indigenous people. Somehow it will involve the oppression and we'll call it the oppression of women as well. And this is an attack on Black people, brown people, indigenous people, women, and children at this point. And so this is exactly in alignment with the Third Reich's agenda when they started to come into power. And so I wrote down, I follow this girl, Monty Mader. She's a Nashvilleian, and she has taken it on under her wing, and it's been her mission to do deep research into all of these things that are coming out. And she's kept up with every single thing that's happened, on a dime. And she's very educated. She's very smart. She grew up in a Christian fundamentalist household. And so she knows the voice of extremists and their agenda. And so now she understands that her purpose in growing up in a household like that was to make her the independent woman that she is, and so that she would have a passion and a chip on her shoulder to follow every fucking move that is happening right now and illuminate people to the truth of what's happening and why it's happening. So I happened to stop on her post today when she was basically leaking this information that came out in the news today. And so she pointed out that you would be wise to have real historians' history books in your house to be able to know the truth from lies and to be able to teach this to the young people around you that are going to be getting nothing but a false lie of an education in school. And I know for myself, public school doesn't give you the whole dirty truth of history, but we did know the basic truth. And you go on to college, and then that's when you get into the disgusting, hairy details of it all. And so in World War II, they went after the professors. So this is a list of books that I ordered today, and it wouldn't be a bad idea if you order these books while you still can. A People's History of the United States. The True History of the United States. It's either the true history or a true history of the United States. The Humanity Archive. And the Reich series by Richard J. Evans, there's 1, 2, and 3. The first book is The Coming of the Reich. The second book is The Reich at War, and then the second book is The Reich in Power, and then the third book is The Reich at War. So you'll find these, sometimes they're sold in a trilogy. I had to piece them together through different places. You can order them used, so it's not like $1 million. I also felt called and led to order a copy of the U.S. Constitution. You can buy that because they sell it you can buy it on where bookstores are sold, where books are sold. They law students have these books. So don't download the PDF from the websites because the websites have already been tampered with already. And so you can't trust what's on the internet, but you can trust a book that was published, before 2025. And then there is actually a book that I bought, or it's a published version, soft paperback version of the U.S. Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Bill of Rights. You should have a copy of this in your house and make yourself aware and familiar with what the Bill of Rights says, with what the Constitution says, with what the Declaration of Independence says, because it is getting chainsaw hacked to pieces, and you need that in your home so that you know what your rights are, and so that you remember whatever comes next, you know the truth. This is how we are the wisdom keepers. It's actually happening where we are literally having to save history, save science, save our Constitution, if nothing else, in our own memory bank, so that we can tell a verbal tradition, in how Kabbalah was a secret verbal tradition passed along to prophets and sages and their understudies, because it was too powerful and too dangerous for any regular old Joe to know about these things. Well, it has been revealed to the public during these times because of the level of consciousness that we've gotten to, which isn't that great, but it's so needed in this time that it's no longer helpful to keep these things secret. So, I also got a history, an indigenous people's history of the United States as well. Let's see. So, benevolent guide. So pay attention to voices of reason. You don't want extremism on either side. However, everything is so ridiculous and extreme right now that even the basic facts are extreme. I read an article today about a woman who was fired in Alabama because she'd been working in the cafeteria at an elementary school for 8 years. And I even had this idea myself. She was working at the cafeteria and she took it upon herself to start fundraisers for children who don't have enough money for lunch because all of that support and aid was defunded. So she took it upon herself to start fundraising to pay for children's lunch who couldn't afford to eat, and she got fired for that. The school board fired her for trying to feed hungry children. This isn't a case of them not understanding and not knowing that this is going to affect people. This is them purposefully trying to starve people out, overwork them, exploit them, kill them off, and then enslave the middle class to be the people left to basically be the ones to be exploited for the upper class. This isn't about right and left anymore. It's not about race. I mean, it is for them, but everyone else that's not in that upper 1%, that aren't the few handful of billionaires, need to realize that not one of them has nice intentions for anyone, to make anything better for anyone. They are coming after us. They want to poison us. They want to take away our health care. They want to put us in positions of having dangerous pregnancies. It's sinister and it's aggressive. And so we have the raven's head again after last week. This is when we're called to the work, right? It is a call to the laboratory. You have work to do. A lot of us here that are watching this channel have already been doing the inner work, thank God, because now the service to mankind is so heavy that I feel like I've been watching people who are just now doing the inner work on themselves, and they don't have the bandwidth to handle all the things that are going on in the country. So it's like they're now consumed with their own inner work and their healing, which it's like, that's why we needed to do it years ago. That's why when we started this channel, I kept saying, don't wait for the eclipses to take things. Don't wait for the eclipses to be the catalyst for things. Don't wait, because it's going to get harder and harder and harder, and you're going to be left behind while we're all jumping onto another timeline, moving forward and dealing with whatever's on our plate in front of us. And we're here. The time is now. Shit is hitting the fan. And so the people who have done the work, we have the nervous systems, we have the threshold, we have the establishment, the foundation of wisdom, and the ability to listen to that inner guidance, to be able to be the way showers for the people who are like basically in the sinking lifeboats right now. So we have to answer the call. And the Queen of Cups here, this is exactly what I'm talking about. The Queen of Cups is intuitive. She is psychic. She knows how to listen to her inner voice. And she's also the caretaker of others. People come to her when they don't understand what's happening, when they need emotional guidance, when they need support, when they need encouragement. Be careful, because the Queen of Cups tends to give so much of herself that she gets depleted. And we cannot get depleted right now. We have to maintain our strength, because it's in those weak days when we get so tired that we want to throw in the towel too. And we start losing hope and we start feeling despair. But we can't afford that, right? You got to get your cry out. You got to throw your fit, and you've got to get back out there, because we can't afford to fall into negativity and despair and despondency and futility. We have to be the strong ones. We are the ones that are left. Like, we are the expendables, who have been brought together to like take on this mission. Because if you're looking for your elders, they're lost in the confusion. My parents, my mom, I've gotten through to her, but my dad, the one who's the most loud and vigilant and aggressive about being on the absolute lookout for the Antichrist, is completely confused by all of this, and he's been sucked in by it. So we are the ones, us elder millennials, the Oregon Trail generation, the younger millennials, and even the Gen Zers can smell through this whole thing. They can smell bullshit where they see it. The younger kids, we have to be there for them and be their mentors and be their guides, because they're the ones that are still in school, and they're going to be having like all this brainwashing come over them. The Cheeto it defunded PBS and the Public Broadcasting Network or NPR, because he said that it's brainwashing people into communist thinking. So Sesame Street was created to help teach and tutor children who were underprivileged and in overcrowded, underserved schools, so that they could learn literacy and math, and they would have that extra supplemental education in their television show when they got home. So they're going after specifically Sesame Street. They're trying to say that Sesame Street is a communist agenda. Meanwhile, Cheeto is the butt boy and lackey for the freaking communist president of Russia, Vladimir Putin. Isn't that weird? A couple of years ago, my dad was going on a rampage about how much he hated Russia and Putin. And now it's like, do you not understand? Are you not even watching the play-by-plays happening? Like, are you following the chessboard here? Don't you understand what's really going on? It's infuriating. But nevertheless, we've been called. We have a calling. The Saturn here, the Saturn card, is talking about a couple of different things. On a personal level, we have to be more disciplined than ever, and we have to practice restriction, and we have to practice boundaries. Boundaries with ourselves, to not doom scroll longer than we need to know what we need to know what's going on. We need to have the discipline to fight the depression and get out of bed and get up early and do all the things that that fill us up, that keep us healthy, that keep us strong, and all of those extra things towards our goals and our dreams and our gifts and the things that we share. We have to stay focused. Otherwise, it's too easy to get into a fog and get depressed, to be in a malaise and be blasé and want to sleep late and numb out and veg out and check out. We've got to stay on it. So Saturn's Cazimi recently was the death and rebirth of Saturn, which is the keeper of time. We have to respect our time. Respect the time you are given in every day, in every week, in every month. Be with this Three of Cups. It's like seize the day, carpe diem. Live while you can. Be in joy, in the moments of joy. Like lean in and celebrate the things, even the smallest things. Celebrate those things. Hold fast to your joy. The Three of Cups is about celebration. It's about being with intimate friends and your inner circle. We need to build community. We need to rely on our emotional support groups right now. And we need to be there for each other and be the voice of reason when other people are getting confused. We need to respect our time here on earth. And there's a very limited amount of time for all of us. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I have so much to read. I have to read. Another thing that I was going to tell you guys you should get is looking up the Hebrew transliteration of the Torah. There's like several volumes. You've got the Torah, you have the writings, you have the prophecies or the prophets and Psalms. They all come in different volumes because this is a very thick Bible, because it has the Hebrew letters, which are, it's like a 3-line. You'll see that what distinguishes this is that it's 3-line segments. So you get the Hebrew letters. You get the Hebrew writing and Hebrew letters, which is powerful for your soul to connect to the Creator by scanning those letters, even if you don't understand them. Your soul does. Then there's the phonetic spelling of the Hebrew words in English letters, so you can pronounce the words and read the Hebrew out loud, which basically establishes a connection with the Creator, a stronghold. You are cleaving to the Creator in doing that. So you put a bubble of protection and favor around yourself. And then you have the English translation underneath. And so the other day I spent about an hour or so reading through Genesis, pronouncing the Hebrew words. And you start to almost understand, you start to pick out certain Hebrew words that you start to understand what they mean because you can see the repetition. And then if you start to learn these Hebrew letters and Hebrew words, you will also notice that in certain scenarios, they might use a different word when they're talking about the Spirit of God versus the Spirit of man, right? Well, in the White People Bible, it doesn't really distinguish these things. But in Kabbalah and in Judaism, you learn that there are different levels of the soul. And so I noticed that right away when it referred to the Ruach Elohim, which is the Spirit of God, versus the Nefesh, which is the living soul of all mankind and all living creatures. The Nefesh is the starter package soul that we get when we're born. When we hit 12 for girls and 13 for boys, when they're bat mitzvah and bar mitzvah, we get the next layer of our soul. And so there's certain levels of soul that come during certain ages. But then beyond that, your upgrades and downloads come from your righteousness. Not like self-righteousness and hypocrisy, but by being a holy person, by becoming more like God, by sacrificing your ego, by sacrificing your selfishness and your darkness and your negativity, and becoming more like the Christ. You start receiving more layers of light and soul, which provide you protection and favor and blessing. So if I were you, I would get the Hebrew transliteration of all the volumes of the Torah and the writings and the prophets and the Psalms. The Psalms are very powerful prayers, and I've been doing a series in my shorts that gives you guys each Psalm can be used for certain challenges that we have in our life or for certain purposes. And so what's more powerful than praying the Psalms? Praying the Psalms in Hebrew. That is very powerful. So that is one way that you can actually have a tool to protect yourself and align yourself with favor and blessings. It ain't giving that fucking bitch $1,000 to buy yourself an angel. That's for sure. Okay. The other layer of this Saturn with the Three of Cups, I see restriction happening. This is a warning, and it's like, hey, get these things while you can, because there are restrictions on women right now and education. One of the meanings of Three of Cups is celebrating graduations, birth announcements, engagements, things like that. So when you think about school, when you think about pregnancy, when you think about marriage, these issues, and look at these three women here. What have we heard recently? That, well, we've got the reversal of Roe versus Wade, which makes it impossible to get a safe abortion for many women in states that have made abortion illegal. I haven't caught up with if it's federally illegal yet. This might at some point limit our access to birth control, period. There's defunding the Planned Parenthood, which is sometimes some women's only access to a pap smear to screen for cervical cancer or to care for her pregnancy because she can't afford to go to a traditional gynecologist in a private hospital or whatever. So women who are poor are now being put under an even greater strain to maintain their health during their pregnancy and the health of the fetus. And what did we just hear recently that happened in Georgia? A woman of color was arrested after having a natural miscarriage. The coroner found there was no foul play, no tampering. She had a natural miscarriage. She was found outside of her apartment, left unconscious and bleeding, was taken to the hospital. This is like mid-miscarriage crisis, emergency crisis. And then was promptly arrested for trying to, and charged with concealing the death of a person and disposing of the remains. So this was 2 charges that she's facing that are serious criminal charges that are completely unfounded because there is no protocol or law associated with what a woman is supposed to do. And there's not even any support or help with what a woman does when she has a miscarriage. So I know a million women who have had miscarriages. Almost every woman that I can think of that has tried to build a family has experienced a miscarriage at some point. This affects all of us. And so basically what this is an excuse to put a woman of color in jail and oppress and harass someone unjustly. And it sets a very dangerous precedent for feminine health in this country. So we have that happening. We have the fact that they just made it passed a bill in, I think it was St. Louis, Missouri, where they now you, and I don't know whether this is like federal or whether it's state by state, but it basically says that a woman or anybody that votes has to have their proof that their last name matches their birth certificate, which excludes women who are married that took their husband's name. So this is an effort to suppress this is another voter suppression aimed at women. And then now we have the defunding of the Department of Education, and now the freezing of the libraries that are going after the real information about history and probably about the Constitution, anything that has to do with learning about the Constitution. And then let's see what else. Oh, the freezing of like government funded research in like diseases like cancer and all of that. So all of that got frozen. So you see that there are restrictions coming over issues that involve all of us, right? But that are sort of putting this domineering, Saturn is the father of the zodiac. And it's like that toxic masculine holding its iron fist over the divine feminine. And so this is time for the feminine to rise. We must rise. We must do what we can to resist and create and speak out without doing things that give them license to enforce more restriction. We have to be creative about this. We have to be wise. We have to be discerning. One of the best and most effective things we can do is participate in the boycotts, because all you're doing is just not spending your money on certain brands and certain stores. If you don't want to freeze your doing business with these people forever, that's fine. Sometimes it's better not to say something like, I will never do something again, energetically speaking. But you can participate in the windows of time that everyone has agreed to not spend money in these places. Between the 7th and maybe the 14th, or is it the 18th, we are doing the Walmart blackout. And you can find the People's Union, the one they call Jai, J-A-I, I think is the way you spell it, on Instagram. And he's the head of the organizer of all of this. And so he frequently posts what's going on and when. But there are all these economic blackouts, and they've been working. They have been affecting these major companies that are basically the oligarchs that are running all of this agenda right now. So yeah, and apparently Target has lost several billion dollars, like $12.5 billion, I think is what I saw. I can't remember the exact numbers, but they have over $10 billion they have lost in this quarter. And I know from my friends that go to Target, and they're not like necessarily following all of these blackouts. They're like, why? Target's turned into like a garage sale. Like it looks like a freaking like riot went through it. There's nothing nice. Everything's chintzy and garbage. Like, where is all Target's nice stuff? It's because they're going broke. And so it's working. So, yeah, we'll leave it at that. Sorry, this was a 45-minute video, but there was a lot of important things to cover. Buy the books if you can. You can find them used, and so that's much more economical to do it that way. There's lots of different book sources and providers out there. I know for myself, I've had to order a couple of things off of Amazon recently, but it wasn't during the blackout. So that's that. And yeah, I am watching House of David, and I found that to be a really good show. I really like it. It is on Netflix, or no, not Netflix, Amazon. So it's kind of sucks that you have to watch that. And I'm going to give Genesis a shot to see, so in Genesis, in the written Torah, there's not a ton of detail about the Garden of Eden, but the detail and the mythology comes out in the oral Torah, the oral tradition. There's a lot more going on with Adam and Eve than we can gather from just reading the book of Genesis alone. So I'm wondering if they have rabbinical assistance in fleshing out that story. So I'm going to give it a shot to see. I felt like the story of David and Goliath has played pretty well. I don't think that there's anything too salacious or sensational that they've added that would take away from the general story. And I think it's really interesting, and it inspires me to want to read the Bible and read more. And it kind of brings that to life instead of just reading these like cryptic small portions on a page that don't have a lot of detail. It's like it really brings it to life, and it comes alive for you. So I don't know. I like it. And then of course I'm like rewatching The Chosen as always, because the season 5 is coming out. So I'm really excited about that. All right, you guys, thank you for commenting and liking and sharing. That helps these messages get out to other people who really need them. And I will end with our written blog for today with the picture of the spread. All right, peace. Unpacking our approach to our spiritual assignments this week has us focused on our light work and the importance of the messages that we are tasked with sharing with others. Not only is spiritual wisdom being tampered with, so is the truth in many secular areas of interest as well. Freezes on government disease research, freezes on the library, defunding of the Department of Education, and targeted whitewashing of U.S. history are being executed at this very moment. All forms of wisdom and truth are under attack. It is vital that we protect not only sacred spiritual wisdom, but also the truth about history, so that we can avoid repeating it and what science has discovered and revealed for us. We are called to the work of refining and strengthening our intuition and discernment, and charged with the spiritual promptness of acting on this guidance when we are moved to do so. This is not the same as acting reactively to fear, excitement, or mob mentality, but this is a very calm, quiet voice that you feel within. You have a simple phrase that comes to you in your chest. Celebrate and enjoy each day. Respect your time and what you do with it. Pray in groups of 2 or more with certainty that the Creator is revealing the light and obliterating darkness. There was already a bill passed in Kentucky making it so that individuals can be arrested for protesting at the Capitol. This is a direct violation of our constitutional rights of freedom of assembly and freedom of speech. Get the books you are led to get while you still can. I suggest the U.S. Constitution, Declaration of Independence, and Bill of Rights. The Hebrew Transliteration, 3-lined Bible with Hebrew letters, the phonetic spelling of the Hebrew words in English, and the English translation. Reading the Bible out loud in Aramaic is one of the most powerful things you can do to put protection around yourself and make a sacred connection to the divine favor of the God of Abraham.